Ocean Key. It's a Caribbean paradise and one of my favorite places to be, but not too long ago it didn't even exist. It was carved, dredged, mined, abandoned, and then transformed into a tranquil island whose serenity belies an unlikely history. Hi, I'm Mike, the solo budget traveler, and this is the story most visitors never get to hear, how Ocean Key came to be. Located just 62 miles off the coast of Miami, Ocean Key is a private island leased for 100 years by the MSC Cruise Line. It's a popular stop on MSC's Caribbean itineraries. The port is rarely empty. One ship typically arrives just hours after the last one departed. But the spot was once a natural shoal. That's a shallow patch of seafloor made up of sand, coral, and in this case, a rare mineral called Oolitic Aragonite. Coral forms from the skeletal remains of marine life layered over thousands of years. Many of Florida's coastal islands are in fact ancient coral reefs, but Oolitic Aragonite, that's the magic stuff. It's a soft, powdery white mineral made mostly from crushed seashells and marine life. It stirs up only in a few rare places where warm, shallow waters stir up just the right soup of minerals and motion. When it's dry, it feels like sifted flour. In fact, when erosion threatened the famous white sand beaches of Florida's Gulf Coast, local leaders brought in Oolitic Aragonite to help restore the delicate quartz shoreline. And one of the few places where Oolitic Aragonite forms naturally was the quiet shoal that would eventually become Ocean Key. A corporation from Hawaii called Dillingham figured they could make a fortune mining this stuff. It's used in everything from farm fertilizer and concrete to ecoplastics and aquarium sand. So in 1968, Dillingham struck a deal with the Bahamas, and environmentalists, they were outraged. The dredging stirred up clouds of silt that drifted for miles, blocking sunlight and spoiling marine habitats. Local fishermen feared the murky water would drive away fish and devastate their livelihoods. And waste from the dredging piled up into a man-made island so barren and windswept that Sports Illustrated called it one of the ugliest places on the planet. In the July 6, 1970 edition of Sports Illustrated magazine, an author describes Ocean Key this way. Although it bears the appealing name Ocean Key, this new island is not and never will be a palm-fringed paradise. Of all the 3,000 keys in the Bahamas, Ocean Key is the least lovely. It will resemble a barren swatch of the Sahara, dredged from the seabed for a purpose that will surely repel more tourists than it attracts. That Sports Illustrated writer might be pleased to see what's become of the place. But the Dillingham Corporation? Not so much. They never turned a profit, and by 1984 they turned the operation over to another company who had no better luck. By 2000, the island had been quietly abandoned, littered with rusting dredging equipment and swallowed by weeds. Ocean Key faded, quietly, forgotten, its edges corroding in the salty breeze. For a while, nature began to reclaim the island, but then a new investor arrived with a different scheme. This time, the focus was on natural gas. The AES Corporation is a global energy company based in Virginia. They proposed building a liquefied natural gas facility on Ocean Key. The plan was to offload natural gas by ship, convert it into liquid on the island, and send it by pipeline to Florida. But environmentalist opposition mounted on both sides of the water, and the project stalled. The gas company held the lease for a few more years, but nothing was ever built. By the time AES left, Ocean Key had become an isolated industrial ghost town, hulking metal skeletons rusting in the sun. Nature creeping back one stubborn vine at a time. A failed experiment yielding inch by inch to the elements. And for a while, that's how it remained. But on the other side of the Atlantic, a very different story was taking place in Italy, one that would eventually give this broken island a second chance. Enter the Aponte family. Gianluigi Aponte. In 1968, he was a former bank teller and an ambitious sea captain from Naples. He and his wife Raffaella secured a $200,000 loan to purchase a second-hand freighter. At first, they called it the Aponte Shipping Company, later renaming it to the Mediterranean Shipping Company, MSC for short. Today, MSC is the world's largest shipping container company. Its logo is everywhere on cargo ships and cruise ships throughout Europe, and it's still privately held by the Apontes and their 2 children. In 2024, Forbes magazine reported that Gianluigi Aponte is worth nearly $33 billion, making him the world's 48th wealthiest person. Raffaella Aponte? She's in 53rd place. Before we continue, I want to point out that I have no relationship with MSC. This video is not sponsored. I had originally planned to do a travelogue, but Ocean Key's story just kept pulling me in. And you know how YouTube works. If you like and subscribe, more people will get to see the video, and I'm curious what you think of this one. MSC didn't diversify into cruising until 1988, when the Apontes acquired the Monterey, a 36-year-old ocean liner originally built as a freighter and later refitted for passengers. By the late 80s, the Monterey was near the end of her service life, but the Aponte saw potential in her aging hull. That modest start eventually grew into MSC Cruises, operator of more than 20 ocean-going cruise ships and ranking among the world's major passenger lines. At the same time, Royal Caribbean was turning one of the Bahamas' 3,000 uninhabited islands into a branded destination, a custom-built resort reserved exclusively for its guests. And Coco Cay, it made a big splash, one the cruise industry couldn't ignore. Soon, Norwegian, Carnival, and Disney struck deals for their own resorts on uninhabited Bahamian islands. Recognizing a growing trend, the Aponte family made their move. In 2015, they signed a 100-year lease on Ocean Key. Construction began in earnest in 2017, and the first cruise guests reached the island 2 years later. Royal Caribbean turned Coco Cay into a tropical playground with water slides and zip lines, perfect for families and thrill seekers. Disney's Castaway Cay and Carnival's Half Moon Cay also leaned into fun and fantasy. But the Apontes, they had a different vision, one that reflects their brand. Calmer, quieter, elegant without being flashy. A place where guests can truly feel they've escaped. While there's no theme park-style entertainment, there's still plenty to do on Ocean Key. In addition to 2 lagoons and about 1.5 miles of beaches, MSC offers snorkeling, kayaking, and yoga or massage sessions in shaded pavilions, each within sight of the waves. Private cabanas are available to rent, but for the solo budget traveler, just relaxing by the lagoon with a good book is about as good as it gets. The island's most striking feature is its 100-foot-tall lighthouse, perched at Ocean Key's western edge. It's one of the island's most photographed spots, especially at sunset. If you have the legs and $35, MSC lets you climb its 165 steps for panoramic views of the beaches and your ship and port. Like everything in Ocean Key, it's meant to feel like a retreat, not a theme park. Ocean Key is not just a private island. MSC calls it a marine reserve. After clearing away their rusting equipment, they partnered with Bahamian officials and scientists to revive the surrounding waters, planting coral and building safe habitats for fish, sea turtles, and other marine life. Colorful reef fish, now dark between coral heads, replanted around the island, habitats that didn't exist a few years ago, and underwater seagrass beds once choked by silt are showing signs of growth. MSC also planted over 5,000 palm trees and 75,000 native plants, not to restore nature, but to give the island life it never had. It's still a work in progress, but the goal is clear: to turn a failed industrial site into a living ecosystem. Ocean Key isn't quite self-sufficient, but MSC has installed solar panels that they say provide about 40% of the island's energy. A reverse osmosis system produces more than 100,000 gallons of fresh water each day, and treated wastewater is used to irrigate plants and trees, helping reduce the island's reliance on supply runs from the mainland. But as serene as Ocean Key feels, it's still a part of the real world and a part of the Bahamas. And lately, travelers have noticed new fees. Since passengers on private islands spend less time and less money in ports like Nassau and Freeport, the Bahamian government raised the tax on cruise visitors. They added a 10% value-added tax on just about everything you buy on private islands. Food, drinks, cabanas, spa treatments, excursions. From what I can tell, The recent price bumps on Bahamian cruises mostly reflect these new surcharges. More than 200 staff live on Ocean Key full-time. MSC is expanding working housing, a quiet sign of busier days ahead. The island's growing popularity has also led them to construct a second pier deep enough to accommodate their newest and largest ship, the World America. Meanwhile, MSC is developing a second, smaller island nearby, formed from the sand dredged to construct the new berth. It's estimated to be about 1/3 the size of Ocean Key and is expected to offer a more exclusive luxury experience, likely accessed by covered shuttle boats from the main island. Most islands are gifts of nature. This one is different. Carved by ambition, abandoned to rust, and later dressed in new colors, Ocean Key didn't rise from the sea. It was made, lost, and made again. It wasn't born beautiful, but here it stands, reclaimed, reimagined, and quietly remarkable.